What is up? It is the walking super ego here. We're about to watch a video about trigger warnings. Laci Green finally did a video about trigger warnings. I'm surprised it's 3 minutes and 14 seconds long. Hopefully her stance is nothing too radical. But it's Laci Green. So, I mean, all we can do is pray and hope.
Oh, hey babes, Laci here. It is a sweaty LA night. It's the perfect time to talk about trigger warnings. There's been a
Wouldn't the perfect time to talk about trigger warnings be a safe space?
bunch of, verbal vomit about trigger warnings the past
You're the one to talk about verbal vomit. I mean, I'm not trying to be too hostile, but really, you were talking about verbal
year or so. Most recently, the University of Chicago released this letter to incoming freshmen. They said, quote, "Our commitment to academic freedom means we don't support so-called trigger warnings. We don't cancel invited speakers because their topics might prove controversial."
And that's perfectly reasonable. I mean, just because a person's topic is controversial means he needs to be shut down in his censorship. If it's not controversial, then it's not it's not important. Because the most important things are always controversial. The most important things are always going to send some static into your brain a little bit. So I gotta support their decision not to support trigger warnings, because anything can trigger somebody. I mean, there's thousands of people with thousands of different experiences, and there's thousands of triggers. So censoring somebody because they could trigger somebody would mean that no controversial information could get in. Nothing that'll actually make you think and question your own status quo would not be able to be said, and I do not support that.
And we don't condone the creation of intellectual safe spaces where individuals can retreat from ideas and perspectives at odds with their own.
Isn't that what ISIS want to do? Don't they want to isolate themselves from any ideas that aren't their own? See, intellectuals don't do that. Intellectual people do not isolate themselves from ideas that are not their own, because you should be able to look at different perspectives and worldviews and be able to either refute them or at least discuss them. I think if you can't do that, then one, you don't have a solid foundation of what you believe. Because all the things I believe, if I actually have a solid foundation of it, I'm not scared to discuss them. I'm not scared to argue and debate them. Because either I'm right, or at the end of the discussion, my thinking will be different, and then I'll be right. So intellectual people do not isolate themselves from new ideas. ISIS isolate themselves from new ideas. So SJWs, I mean,
the problem with this statement is the same problem with a lot of critiques of trigger warnings on the internet, and that's not what a trigger warning is. It is not a retreat from ideas and perspectives. If it is actually being used in that way, then the trigger warning is being misused. I first became aware of trigger warnings when I was in college, but it was not in class, it was during an internship. I was working with domestic abuse survivors at a state agency. Trigger warnings exist to give someone a little bit of a buffer before confronting them with information, graphics, whatever that may be deeply painful.
But here's the problem with that. If I'm in a room with 10 people, and there is a victim of sexual assault, there's a victim of domestic abuse, and there's a victim of I don't know, maybe they got into a car crash or something, like a fatal car crash or some crazy shit. I say, yo, hold up, I'm about to say something trigger. Cause remember, I can't just say, yo, I'm about to talk about domestic abuse, cause they're already triggered. I can't say I'm about to discuss rape because they're already triggered. So I just have to say, oh, I'm about to talk about something triggering, and then everybody, all 10 people, leaves the room because they all have some type of problem.
Upsetting. They are specifically used in populations which may be experiencing higher levels of trauma to help them cope, compartmentalize, and keep moving forward. Now, I think where things got a little bit more complex and thus more controversial is when they were translated for usage in the blogosphere. Now you have online communities that want very specific trigger warnings, people talking about very specific things. I don't think it's up to me to say.
See, that's the thing, spiders Nazi paraphernalia. I mean, that just goes back to the point. Like, if you have a fucking victim of rape and a victim of domestic abuse, and I'm saying, yo, this might be a little triggering, and then they leave the room or they brace themselves, and I started telling me, yo, look at this crazy ass picture of a spider. But now they've braced their mindset. Like, they've braced their mindset to get ready to talk about rape or domestic abuse when they really didn't have to do it. Like, I don't understand, like, why we necessarily need trigger warnings. I mean, I'm considerate to a person who wants trigger warnings, but it does seem counterproductive to overcoming that weakness, because fear is a weakness. All right, if you need a trigger warning, that's a weakness. Now, I mean, it's not bad because it's a weakness. All right, I'm not belittling you because it's a weakness, but it is a weakness. All right, if I bring up rape and now you in tears, or now you having a traumatic mental experience, it is weakness. But I think trigger warnings make it harder to overcome that. I think that you should not need a trigger warning. Hopefully, you have people in your life that'll help you overcome this to the point where you do not need a trigger warning. All right, let's get to the root of the problem. Let's try to solve the problem.
Oh, people overuse trigger warnings or whatever. But I do think that,
like, I hear the fat acceptance crowd talk about fucking trigger warnings. Like, if I'm talking about diabetes or obesity, you don't need a trigger warning for that.
demand for really specific trigger warnings in very general settings has been used to undermine the legitimacy and value of trigger warnings as a whole. Another observation worth noting is that trigger warnings are part of a broader ideology where people's experiences and people's needs are taken into account. It's more of a nurturing culture. Trigger warnings and the culture that surrounds them runs directly.
I mean, you say it's a nurturing culture, but it's more than just nurturing. I mean, these are fucking adults, though. Like, you don't only, like, I'm all for it, okay? You can have, if you go through a traumatic experience, you can have my support, you can have my comfort. I can even nurture and take consideration for your feelings. But you are an adult. Like, these are things you should be trying to overcome, alright? These people are in fucking college. You gotta be mentally stronger than that. The thing about the SJW crowd is they seem so mentally fucking fragile. It's bad. It's not good to be mentally fragile. These people are going to be raising fucking kids. You're going to be raising the next generation. You need to be stronger. Okay, if I got to give you a fucking trigger warning when I talk about Nazism or paraphernalia, you need serious help. Alright? When people talk about fucking slavery or discrimination and police brutality, I don't ask for trigger warnings. Is it fucked up? Yes, fucked up. But I take it face on. And I learn, I grow with it, and I learn how to live with it. I learn how to deal with it. I learn how to fucking talk about it. I learn how to keep my calm in the face of chaos. Mental chaos. Everybody has mental, or at least a lot of people, alright? Some people are blessed enough to not have these type of issues. But a lot of people do have traumatic issues. They do have things that eat away at them mentally. And it should be part of your job to try to not let that destroy you. Or add a hindrance to your life. Trigger warnings are a hindrance to your life. If you can't have an open fucking dialogue, then your experience is a hindrance. And it's something that you should strive to fix.
Contradictory to hyper masculinity, where everyone's tough and we make.
Yo, being. I don't like what she's implying. That saying like you should be tough is hyper masculinity. It's not even fucking masculinity, honestly. Like Laci Green, you should be tough. That's not being masculine. You should be tough. I should be tough. My mom is fucking tough. Alright, my mom is tough. Everybody should be tough. Like, I don't like how this is a culture where being tough is seen as being hyper masculine instead of being an essential tool to get through life. Like, there are obstacles in life. There are obstacles. That's why you need to be tough. There's obstacles for men and women. Fuck privilege right now, alright? Fuck male privilege. Males have to go through obstacles, and males need to be tough. Women go through obstacles, and women need to be tough. It is not easy to overcome these mental... It is not easy to overcome that type of mental stress. If you feel like you need a trigger warning, if you've been raped, that shit is not easy to overcome. It's not supposed to be easy, but you should toughen up. Everybody should toughen up. I don't like how I don't want a generation of kids where they're told being tough is hyper masculine and they shouldn't have to worry about that. It's a good quality to have. It's not masculinity. It's not masculine. There's plenty of tough women. There are plenty of tough women. Plenty of tough women.
Fun of people who are weak little pussy crybabies. The backlash to trigger warnings isn't necessarily sexist, but I think that it is fueled by sexism. Okay, I'm almost done with my very tired rant. I'm going to end on what I actually agree with the Dean on, and that's that controversial speakers, short of hate speech, should not be banned from speaking at universities. Speakers, short of hate speech, should not be banned from speaking at universities. That's ridiculous. Censorship is not the answer to social justice problems. I am intimately familiar with this issue because I have been targeted for censorship. Alright, those are my thoughts. I definitely want to know what you all think. Is this something that has actually affected you at school? I'm particularly curious about that because there is actually some data to suggest that this whole trigger warnings on campus panic is completely overblown in the first place. Like, not a lot of people are actually complaining about this to professors. So, you know, it's internet drama for you.
So Laci Green, she didn't really say anything too crazy, honestly. She was really just relaying information. Yes, she gave an opinion, but she didn't have a strong stance. My opinion on trigger warnings are that, for one, like, they need to be discussed. They need to be discussed with people around you. But if I cannot have an open dialogue, like, you can have an open dialogue with anything around me, okay? And some feminists will argue, oh, well, you haven't been traumatized. But, I mean, plenty of rape victims can have an open dialogue about rape, or they don't hear rape and have some mental breakdown. I think that having that mental breakdown or needing a trigger warning is a side effect of this culture where you are not nurtured. She said being nurtured, but you're being coddled from the world. Because, I mean, it kind of goes to this thing where I always say it's like life is fucked up. That's why victim blaming is not victim blaming. But that is something that I will discuss in another video. If you do want to hear about my stance on victim blaming, tell me in the comments, because I will be happy to make a video about it. If you have any opinion that I fucking disagree with, I will respond to you in the comments. And if you have enough to say about it, okay, if you have enough information to offer up on the discussion, if you have a big enough of an opinion, I'm all for having an open dialogue. And we can do a Google Hangout. We can go live on air. That is your decision. Like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Walking Super Ego. I am out of here. I'll see y'all in the next video. I pull up and got so big that they try to hit me with both fines. Hype Williams, big pimpin', yeah, just like the old times. Same niggas from the old days. A lot of sides on the same.